Welcome to Financial Fridays. We're going to talk about spending leaks.
I'm Amber.
I'm Alisa, and we'll talk about what are spending leaks, what our own spending leaks are, and how to address them, how to fix that in our budgets.
Yeah. So we talked last time about saving strategies, and we both committed to looking at our own tracking of our spendings, and we're both laughing at each other because we just this morning were like, "Did you do it?" And we were both like, "Ah."
Yes.
Yes, we did. But yes,
We tracked it. I didn't do the math
yeah,
until this morning.
right.
Yeah.
And we didn't really talk about it. So basically, we're talking about it with you guys
Yep.
at the same time.
Yep.
So yeah. I guess so. First, what is a spending leak, right? Spending leak is usually something that is in a want category, something that you usually don't think of, something that just comes like naturally. It's a natural reflex. So, and these things can destroy a good budget because it is something that can add up over time. And then you look at your budget and say, where did this money come from? And it usually comes from not tracking the spending too, right? So
Yeah.
it usually takes a couple months, honestly, to track your spending to figure out what that spending leak is. And it also depends on what type of spender you are as well, because if you're an impulse spender or something comes up out of nowhere, that's a different story. But sometimes it's like a thing that comes up all the time. So
Yep. Yeah, and what I've noticed about spending leaks is that most of the time we know what our spending leaks are. We know what we fail at or where we fail in our budget. Like, for example, I used to be, my spending leak was chips, as you know. Every time that I would go to the grocery store, I would get chips. It doesn't matter what I was buying. It doesn't matter how healthy all the other stuff was. I always bought chips, like always. And it like started adding up so much that like every week that I would go into a grocery store, I would get like 4 bags of chips and I would finish them because I would bring them to the office and then they would just be gone within the week. So that was a big one, and it was not only that it was not necessarily good for my health, but it was like that is putting a little dent in my budget every time. So I gladly cut that out finally after years. But now I have others, and they might be even a little bit more than just a simple leak, right? It might be more of a flood at this point sometimes. And that's when you notice that things are like getting worse, right? And yeah, and it really depends on what kind of spender you are. If you look at every penny, you might not necessarily have a spending leak. You might just have like one thing that you spend a lot of money on. Yeah, and I don't think I have a specific category for mine, but we know that every month also changes, right? So some months I will spend more money on going out. Some other months I spend more money on groceries because I'm not going out as much, so I'm cooking more. So it changes, right? And then this month for me, and we'll talk about it, but this month for me was tax return season, right? So I got my tax return. So that means I can spend a little bit more money on the things that I want, that I was planning on, and also paying off some things that I had, kind of pending there, right? So, yeah.
So mine, and I believe I shared this before, mine was Coke before Coca-Cola. And I have shared before, of how I figured that out, and she was my accountability partner for that. So that has changed significantly as well since that. I have looked at mine, and I actually saw that subscriptions are my spending leak. I don't keep up with them. I'll sign up for stuff, and then I figure out that I didn't cut it off before the 7-day free trial, and then they keep on going, and then I'm trying to figure out where did this come from. So that was mine. So a couple weeks ago, I had went through, because mine are all managed by like Google, and I had to go through there and see what all I was signed up for, and realized that there was a lot of stuff on there that I didn't realize that I didn't cut off. So and then also I never actually looked at how much all of my streaming services was. So like Disney, Hulu, and all that I pay for, I didn't realize how much they all were. So actually adding all that up and then getting rid of the subscriptions that I don't need anymore, that I just wanted for the 7-day free trial.
Yep.
And then I forget after that 7 days to cancel, or before the 7 days. So that was my spending leak that I found out, and a decrease in my expenses for that. So now I can, stop getting that $2.99 Google charge every month for whatever purpose it was. But little things like that add up, because it was multiple of them. So $2.99, $3.99, one was for $5.99, and I'm like, I thought I got rid of that like a long time ago, and I did it. But it's good that I went through that, because I didn't realize, because it was something that I didn't even realize that was doing that. And I thought, though, it was going to be, because usually I have, with my daughter, my youngest is 4, if she sleeps in her bed all night, this is something that we were going to go through just for this year, because she just started school, she gets a donut in the morning, so we go to the store, or we go to the gas station in the morning if she sleeps throughout the night. Now, some days we don't go to the gas station, right? So she's been getting really good, though, at being in her room, which is not a bad thing. That's the whole point of it, right? But I thought that was going to be my spending leak, because I thought that I didn't budget enough for that out of my budget. And actually, we've been doing pretty good with staying within that budget, because I will limit it to just a donut, and I get myself something. Sometimes I have time to get Melody something, and my oldest, and sometimes I don't. So it's been I've been able to stay within that budget. But the subscriptions, though, I was definitely way over, and I didn't realize why. So that was my finding of spending leak. We had to go through our just within a month, to look at our expenses, to be like, okay, we both talked about it too. It was a rough month. Like, we both were like, what happened? Like, and then we looked over it, and we're like, oh, this is what happened. So, and you will feel the effects of a spending leak too. It's funny how even a little bit like that will make an effect on the next month.
Yeah. And what you noticed, sometimes it tends to be like, oh, shoot, like a wake-up call, right? Like, I spent too much money on this whatever item that was, or whatever that leak was, and then it calls you out on it, and then the next month you don't spend anything at all on that. But I feel like that's not the right way to address it, because sometimes it's like going cold turkey, right? Like, if you say, I am not going to spend any money on donuts at the gas station, like, that might not be realistic either. So you might stop it for a month and then go back to it in a worse way, like I did with chips, right? But sometimes you need that kind of like, that kind of wake up call to say, oh, shoot, okay, this is, I'm doing too much of this. Let's see what comes out of that. And we have like, I want to, if you're able to like watch the things, sometimes we have samples at our classes of things that you can do. For example, this is mine. It's just a tiny booklet where I keep all of the things, right? And I might not do it all the time, but this month, this is where I was writing things out. So I just keep, I put 3 days in one page, because it might not be enough. Like, I don't want to use a whole notebook for like 1 month, right? If I don't have to, because some months I'm not spending any money. So I just wrote down every single thing, every single day that I spent money. There were just a few days in the month that I didn't spend money. But you just keep track of things, and however works for you, right? Amber has her notebook, and this is your notebook that you use for other things, right? It's not just for that.
Yeah. Actually, this isn't that notebook, but I did in the previous videos show it. But yeah, I do use that, and usually my reality kicks in is at the end of the month, where I look over all of my expenses, and then I realize that I either went over or under, whichever. And I, sometimes I'll go over for a couple of months, and then I realize, like, okay, so what's going on? Why do I keep on going over this amount? And that's usually when I figure that out. So, but yeah.
Yeah. So you can have different ways of doing it. Most people will say, "Oh, I always keep track with my bank account," but I think it's different when, like, yes, I look at my bank account every day, but I really look at my bank account every day to make sure that nothing has come out of it that wasn't supposed to, right? Like I will check everything that it's, the amount that I wanted to pay for that item, that was what they charged me. And so on. But really, the spending tracker, you write down every single thing that you spent money on every day, and then at the end of the month, which I have one sheet over here. I'm not going to show you all my amounts, but but at the end of the month, you do like a whole list of things, right? Like, oh, in gas, I thought gas was going to be one of mine. I didn't spend as much in gas as I thought it would. I haven't been going anywhere, but but I just really thought, because of the switch in size of cars, that I was going to spend more money on that, and it hasn't been a huge difference. But I spent a lot of money this month on outings. So I went to a couple shows. I hung out with a few people, and that, it's not a bad thing to spend money on, but I know when I'm spending too much money on it, right? Like you start noticing when it's a little bit more than you should. And then I spent a lot of money on sweatshirts this month.
Oh, okay.
That was its own category. So that's not a good thing necessarily.
You're set for a while.
But yeah, that's what I thought. And then I spent on another sweatshirt, right? So that was kind of one of my spending leaks. But a couple of the things that I noticed at the end of the month, right? Like when I was doing the math, is I filed my taxes this month. So I paid for that. So that, that's a payment that I wasn't necessarily counting on, that I should have been counting on, but it's just, it happens once a year. I received taxes back, so I was able to pay a lot on, credit card debt that I had. Not necessarily pay everything off, but just put a little bit more on those payments. And then I am traveling soon, so I'm buying gifts for people. And that was another thing that I noticed. I was like, oh, okay, so the things that I bought were not just for me, but I'm buying things for other people. It's my dad's birthday today, or it was a couple days ago, and then now I had to buy a gift for him, and so then there's like little things that will make a difference on how we budget. And I know we have a specific section or a specific session, I should say, on Financial Fridays on budgeting for the holidays and for birthdays and for any holiday, right? Not just Christmas. But yeah, I spent a lot of money on me, and then I also traveled a little bit, so I spent money on my dog care, right? Somebody stays at my house and helps me with taking care of my dog, so that I pay for that, and that's something that I have to. It's kind of like childcare, but a little bit cheaper. But it's one of those things that I knew it was going to happen, and I'm planning on it. Every time that I travel, I have to budget for that. Right? Like it's something that will always come up. But that was something that made a difference in my March spending, definitely.
So I also hear you saying you are budgeting ahead of time for some things, but some things just came out of nowhere. So with a spending leak, then too, usually those are things that we're not planning for, and we have not planning for, and then also like emergency expenses, right? Those are different. So I guess for another example, like we talk about in our classes about coffee shop coffee, spending on the regular of that, but not having it within your budget. We talked about pop as well too, because sometimes so it's usually something that would be normal that would keep on coming that you're not planning for. So, and with, you kept on saying too, with budgeting, like budgeting ahead of time, that's basically what it is, right? So we don't want to go cold turkey, right? And I know a lot of people can't survive without having their coffee shop coffee. I am not one of those people. But if that is the case, then you need to budget for it. And that's where we're just like, everybody has their own things that they do every day on the daily that is a reflex. And sometimes it's just like we can't just give it up, like it just is a part of our daily routine now. which is good. Not to make an excuse for every spending week.
But some.
But some, yeah, or maybe even make it just like an aware, just being aware that you do it is even enough. So that way you can actually not just budget out for it, but maybe be like, okay, instead of 5 times a week, doing it 2 times a week or 3 times a week, whatever it is, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's good to bring up then a good segue into once we identify what our spending leak is, we can use the 4 C's, which you basically hit all of it. Cancel, which is any services that we don't need, anything that you, like for me, I saw subscriptions that I don't need anymore, so I canceled them, right? Challenge, which you challenge yourself with, okay, I see what I did, now this is what I'm going to do moving forward.
Right.
Also with challenging, having an accountability partner, which we say that all the time. And then cut, so if say we have like a service of some sort that maybe we can downgrade on, for me, I was looking at for my subscriptions if I really needed commercials or not commercials in my streaming services or not. I need no commercials. But if you can tolerate commercials, maybe that could be something that you do. And then commit, so it's a commitment. So making a plan for it and then actually sticking to it.
Yeah, I think cut too. When we're paying for subscription, sometimes it's cheaper to pay the annual one than it is to pay monthly. And I have done that with a few of the subscriptions that I have, and it has been useful, right? But also you have to put it in your budget for when that bill is due, right? You have to remember that it's always there. But it's helpful sometimes to have it on a yearly basis as opposed to a monthly. Because monthly you might pay $15 and then the yearly might be $100. So like that's already saving you a little bit. I don't do math, so maybe I did it wrong, but but you get the idea, right?
So you say that as well too. And I had Prime usually comes out in March every year, which was just last month. So that was this is why I saw the subscription jump up.
Yep.
I did not plan
for
that.
We forget,
Yes, and then I was like, wait, where did this go? Like all of a sudden, like the stuff stopped coming up, because I knew that it was due, but I was just like, I gotta wait, I gotta budget for it, I gotta wait, and then it ended up coming out by itself anyway.
Yeah.
And then I was looking at everything, and I'm like, how did I spend this much in subscription? It's because that yearly thing came out in March, which. Usually I don't mind, but I've been a little late with getting my tax refunds because years before that's when I would get it, and then it wouldn't make a difference because usually that's when I would pay it. Yeah. I'm a little behind this year, but that was like the whole reason why my subscriptions went over $150 more, and I'm like, what?
Yep. And then cutting could also be like you share that account with somebody else, right? And then they pay you or you pay them. And it might be cheaper. It might be way cheaper like that. I've done that with my family. The problem is that I'm paying for most of them, so that's something that we're still negotiating. But it's been a lot more helpful to put it all on a yearly, which I still have one that is not yearly because it doesn't have the option for me to do that, and I don't like it, but. And then talking about accountability partners, right? Especially with stuff like this. I feel like Amber and I always talk about stuff like this. We're always talking about money. We're always talking about what we're struggling with and how we're fixing it. We give ideas to each other sometimes, even though we have very different ways of doing whatever, right? It's always helpful to hear the other person and to see what they're doing and to think, oh, maybe I could do something like that, right? Because that's how I started making my own meals, right? Like that was a big deal for me because initially a few years ago, I would buy food like 3 or 4 times a week, every week for lunch. And now I probably do it twice a month, maybe. Like I've been really good at doing that in the last few months. And it's changed completely how much, I have available for savings, how much, because that was one of the categories that I really did more work this month than other months because of the tax return too. I was able to like put money in savings that I just haven't been able to in the last few months. So yeah, like that accountability partner, like talk about the things that you want to do, talk about the changes that you want to make, and then kind of push each other, not in a bad way, but like just kind of support each other in whatever your goals are.
It's way cheaper than a therapy session, I promise you, to have somebody else to
Still go to therapy if you need to.
Yes, that's true. But yes, I feel like we do that to each other, and I hope that everybody else can find somebody.
Yeah.
Sorry, you can't have Elisa, she's already taken.
Yes.
She's mine. But I will say that it's been good to have somebody to talk to about this, because I didn't have that growing up, and we talked about this last night too, of how we didn't talk about budgeting, we didn't talk about this, and this is why we wanted to start this whole podcast, is because we could teach you guys in a webinar series all that we want to, but sometimes it takes a conversation to actually have something be actually applied. So,
yeah, and having those conversations with anybody is like, it gives you ideas of what things you can do. So have those conversations with people. Talk about money. I don't care how uncomfortable it makes people. And it just takes time to get used to it, but it's really helpful.
So I think that is everything. So if you subscribe to our YouTube, LinkedIn, Instagram,
and Facebook,
obviously. And then next time we'll be talking again, and next month here. I'm not sure what the topic is.
I forgot.
But
what month is next? May?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, we do have an event coming up too, where we're gonna have some. It's called Show Me the Money Day, and we're gonna have it on May 17th from 10 to 2. Yes. And we're gonna have workshops taught by other people, not by us, sadly, but it's really helpful to hear everybody. We have workshops on budgeting, credit, buying a home, some in English, some in Spanish. We also have a workshop on how to keep your business, how to open your business, and how to maintain your business. And those will be taught in English and Spanish as well. And resource fair for anything financial, and anything in the community. So it's going to be a really good event, May 17th from 10 to 2.
Yes, and it's absolutely free. We'll be giving door prizes away. We'll be giving raffles away. We will have food for you. So bring your family and come to Home Repair Services on May 17th. So,
Yep.
Yeah. But thank you guys
for
listening. Yeah.